Franklin Township for a residential fire at Riverside Trail. White smoke coming out of the window. House is full of smoke seen from the outside and smells electrical. Central clear at 11:46.
Grand Haven Township for a residential fire at Riverside Trail. White smoke coming out of the window. The house is full of smoke, seen from the outside, and smells electrical. Central clear at 11:46. That is the actual dispatch audio from July 24th. It sounds routine. It sounds small.
It's a tragedy that has unveiled the darkness of the man who investigators say caused it.
Preliminary indications are that the fire was intentionally set in numerous different places throughout the residence on the interior of the home.
Police say he killed his wife and their 6 children before lighting their house on fire. It is an unspeakable act of violence, and now the alleged reality of who this man was and what was going on potentially in his life is starting to come to light. We're on the case, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Whatever was going on in the life of Christopher Kitz, there's no reason that will.
But inside that house, investigators found the bodies of a mother and 6 children, all with gunshot wounds.
Once inside the home, police say they found the entire family, all 8 members, dead.
Units made entry inside to battle the fire because there was smoke showing from the residence. When they got inside, they noticed that there was numerous people deceased inside the home. They then notified the sheriff's office, and we began an investigation into that. So what I can tell you at this point is that 8 people are dead inside the home. There's 2 adults and 6 children.
That's a news conference per WZZM television in Michigan. As police investigated further, they say they realized something very dark may have happened before the fire.
Well, I can tell you that there's 2 adults in the residence as well. Some of the victims...
The fire wasn't an accident. It was an erasure.
Difficult to comprehend.
Franklin Township for a residential fire at Riverside Trail. White smoke coming out of the window. House is full of smoke seen from the outside and smells electrical. Central clear at 11:46.
That's the call that came in just before noon last Friday, dispatching crews to the family's home. Earlier that morning, police say someone had reported smelling smoke, but hours later, it was clear that a fire had started.
You have light smoke showing. Initial crews, established water supply. We'll be stretching a hand line to the alpha side. It's going to be an offensive fire, and I'll be doing a 360 shortly.
Once inside the home, police say they found the entire family, all 8 members, dead.
Units made entry inside to battle the fire because there was smoke showing from the residence. When they got inside, they noticed that there was numerous people deceased inside the home. They then notified the sheriff's office, and we began an investigation into that. So what I can tell you at this point is that 8 people are dead inside the home. There's 2 adults and 6 children.
That's a news conference per WZZM television in Michigan. As police investigated further, they say they realized
Think of a house as a book. Every room is a page, every photograph a sentence telling you who lived there. Now imagine someone soaking every page in accelerant and striking a match. That was the scene at 1911 Riverside Trail, a structure so deliberately destroyed that the physical story of the Kitz family nearly vanished before anyone could read it. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to the VerdictOrigin, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The preliminary word from the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office landed like a hammer wrapped in bureaucratic velvet.
Well, I can tell you that there's 2 adults in the residence as well. Some of the victims that we're calling victims inside the residence at this point did have gunshot wounds to their bodies. We don't have cause of death at this point. I don't know. I don't have 100% identification at this point. I can tell you that 2 adults and 6 children are deceased. We're pending further investigation and full autopsy results, which will be tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow morning.
Any idea what caused the fire?
We're looking into that. We're being assisted by the Michigan State Police arson investigators to see if it was intentionally set. So they're here. They've been on scene for quite some time. We've had numerous units on scene trying to get to the bottom of both the fire and the deaths.
Can you confirm how many victims had gunshot wounds?
Not at this point. No, that'll be pending.
They confirmed the fire was intentionally set in numerous different places throughout the residence on the interior of the home. That phrase, numerous different places, is critical. A fire set in one location might suggest panic, a sudden catastrophic impulse. Multiple origin points across an interior are architectural.
We don't have that official report yet, but preliminary indications are that the fire was intentionally set in numerous different places throughout the residence on the interior of the home.
To this point, law enforcement believe that the violence could have started the night before, and then the fire was carried out in the morning, but at this point it's unclear. Police say they recovered a handgun from the scene, and they also say there were multiple spots in the house where the fire was set. They are, though, still going through video evidence, trying to figure out a timeline of what happened. The sheriff was asked about Christopher's potential motive for allegedly taking the lives of his wife and their 6 kids.
Were there any triggers for Chris as far as possibly job or any board proceedings, anything like that?
It means someone walked through that house with a plan, room by room, ensuring that after the violence was complete, the evidence would burn. And here is where the public narrative splits into 2 irreconcilable timelines. In the official record, Christopher Kitz was the National Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the American Heart Association, a man whose professional identity was tethered to the language of heartbeats and life-saving. He and his wife Mandy raised 6 children, ages 5 to 15, 2 of whom were adopted from China. The family photos show beach trips and bucket lists. Mandy's social media captures a mother who documented everything, a woman described by friends as an incredible wife and the most amazing mom. That is the surface document. The parallel narrative exists in a different archive entirely.
Now, as far as Christopher's relationship with his wife, several media outlets, including the Detroit News, have pointed out posts that Mandy appears to have made on Reddit in 2024. And in these posts, she talked about issues she had in her marriage with Christopher. Now, the screen name on Reddit is Mandy K1179. And this screen name posted often about life in Grand Haven, Michigan, about being a mom to 5 kids, and her dream of being a teacher. She also was not afraid to share that her husband, she says, had cheated on her, and it nearly split them up. She posted in a group that's called As One After Infidelity, and there is this lengthy post, and I'm going to read it for you. Quote, "I feel you. My WH," and it appears she's using internet slang to talk about her husband, "literally cheated with a younger version of me."
Under the username Mandy K1179, on a Reddit support group called As One After Infidelity, Mandy described her marriage in forensic detail.
And I'm going to read it for you. Quote, "I feel you. My WH," and it appears she's using internet slang to talk about her husband, "literally cheated with a younger version of me, except way wilder than I ever was. When my H and I met, husband, I was the intern at the company we both worked for. He was divorced and older than me. Fast forward 10 years and 5 kids. He was cheating with the intern again, the same age I was when I was the intern. I was 5 babies in and actually not in bad physical shape, but I was in the trenches of little kids and just couldn't be who I was before. He had gotten a bonus literally days after D-Day, and I told him I was using it to pay off my credit card, to get Botox, Invisalign, hair extensions, and new clothes that made me feel pretty. I lost tons of weight during the aftermath, but guess what? I never felt better from those things. I still internally blamed myself for not being enough of what he wanted. After about a year of self-loathing, I remember crying and looking at myself in the mirror and realizing how up it was. I was the one who was living so miserably because of what he did. I finally realized that I had been the only person who ever showed up for myself my whole entire life. I didn't deserve to treat myself the way I had been. I decided to rewrite my brain as best as I could. I literally filled up journal upon journal upon journal with nice things about myself, even if I didn't believe them. I stopped dressing for him. I chose to dress for myself. I experimented with my natural curls and wore less makeup. I really leaned into the spiritual experience of getting to know and appreciate my.
She wrote that her husband had cheated with a younger version of herself, that when they met she was the intern at the company where they both worked, and he was divorced and older, and that years later he repeated the same pattern with another intern. In her own words, she was 5 babies in, and actually not in bad physical shape but in the trenches of little kids, and just couldn't be who she was before. That's the confession of a woman who blamed herself for someone else's betrayal. She'll never face prosecution. She'll never answer for what she did because the man who should be held accountable took his own life.
Christopher is dead. He's the one they say did this. He will never face prosecution for what authorities are now alleging. He'll never have to answer why he did it because he took his own life.
Well, there's no prosecution that takes place. When the suspect is also deceased, there's no prosecution that takes place. But it doesn't change in the fact that we're trying to get answers for family. We're trying to get answers for the community. We're trying to get answers for our own responders. And the only way to get those answers is to do a full, fair, thorough, detailed, complete investigation. It's not always fast, but to do a fair and thorough and detailed investigation gives those answers to family, to neighbors, to the community, to the responders that went there. So that takes some time, but eventually people are all going to want those answers, and that's why we work hard to try to get them honest answers.
Joining us now to talk more about this is family law attorney Mandy Kitz. There's just no words for the loss of life in this story, and obviously here on Law and Crime and in the true crime world, we're frankly often.
That phrase will echo through this case like a door slamming shut on every hallway the investigation tries to walk down. The autopsy results converted tragedy into legal determination.
Office shared what their investigation had found.
The deceased adults are Christopher Kitz, age 47 of Grand Haven, and Amanda Kitz, age 39 of Grand Haven. The couple were married. The 6 deceased Kitz children's name will not be released at this time. These include males ages 15, 12, 11, and 5, and females age 11 and 11. 4 of the children were biological children, and 2 were adopted. After the postmortem autopsies, it was determined that the cause of death for all the subjects involved in this was ruled gunshot wounds, and the manner of death for Amanda and the 6 children was ruled homicide. The manner of death for Christopher has been ruled suicide. Additionally, after checking with the Michigan State Police Fire and Arson investigators, it was determined they're working to identify
Cause of death for all subjects gunshot wounds. Manner of death for Amanda and the 6 children homicide. Manner of death for Christopher suicide. A handgun was recovered from the scene. The violence, law enforcement now believes, may have begun the night before the fire was lit. So here is the question that transforms this from a domestic violence case into a clock running out on intervention itself. How many hours passed between the first gunshot and the first flame, and in those hours, was there any window where this was still preventable? That's the thriller element buried beneath the headline. The ticking clock no one heard because it was ticking inside a sealed house. He'll never face prosecution. There it is again. The sheriff was blunt about this reality. No prosecution takes place when the suspect is also deceased. But he added something important. It doesn't change the fact that we're trying to get answers for family, for the community, for our own responders. The investigation continues not toward a courtroom but toward a record. A permanent public document that will have to stand in for justice.
Joining us now to talk more about this is family law attorney Mandy Kitz. There's just no words for the loss of life in this story, and obviously here on Law and Crime and in the true crime world, we're frankly often and almost always talking about loss of life, but the scale here is just, it's unimaginable, especially with the ages. You have these Reddit posts that have been reported by several media outlets having belonged to Mandy Kitz. And she talks about infidelity back in 2024. And Christopher, according to these posts, was cheating on her. And then it was something that they really tried to work through. Knowing what happened last week, and you kind of see these posts, you piece together that it appears that he left his job earlier this month. What stands out to you, kind of as we're piecing together all of this?
Yeah, well, just based on what you just said, first of all, if you were to say, I want to come up with a checklist of the most sympathetic victims of a horrific crime, right? This would check all the boxes: children, faithful wife, mother, a saint, pretty much as far as a parent. Number one. Number two, yeah, there are signals. You can never predict this, and you never want to victim blame, and you never want to say, well, things could have been different had she. But you look back at it, and gosh, so they met when she was an intern and he was much older, divorced, and then he had an affair with somebody similar to that years later, and then she said, I want to stay in the marriage for the sake of the children, which, these are all things we hear all day long, but, sort of like that perfect storm or death of a thousand cuts. There are all these factors that keep coming into it. Then she was talking about it, or she was talking about how to overcome it. And she was in private groups talking about, and maybe therapeutic for her, how do you survive adultery? How do you survive an affair in your relationship? All these things coming together, and his instability, maybe having multiple affairs, maybe, just losing his job. We don't know why. All these things come together, and it just points out one thing: human beings are unpredictable and have dark sides to them. And this, deepest, darkest. And she had no idea she was that he was like that, or she would have gotten out a lot sooner, I'm sure. She thought he was a bad guy. He cheated, he lost his job, but God knows what was going on in his mind, and unfortunately, it's a lot worse than anybody knew, especially her.
The motive question haunts the periphery.
Were there any triggers for Chris as far as possibly his job or any board proceedings, anything like that could have brought an answer to any of this?
That's a good question. That's still part of the ongoing investigation. We're just now getting started in the investigative portion. So obviously most of the first day was entirely on-scene investigation, and now we'll dig in some of the background motives and all those type of things, but I don't have that for you right now.
In the wake of this news, the American Heart Association released a statement to media outlets that said that Christopher was a former staff member and his employment had ended earlier this month. They have not said why he no longer worked for the organization. Now, as far as Christopher's relationship with his wife, several media outlets, including the Detroit News, have pointed out posts that Mandy appears to have made on Reddit in 2024. And in these posts, she talked about issues she had in her marriage with Christopher. Now, the screen name on Reddit is Mandy K1179. And this screen name posted often about...
Earlier this month, Christopher's employment with the American Heart Association ended.
For you right now.
In the wake of this news, the American Heart Association released a statement to media outlets that said that Christopher was a former staff member and his employment had ended earlier this month. They have not said why he no longer worked for the organization.
The organization has confirmed he was a former staff member, but has declined to state why. That silence sits at the center of this case like an unanswered interrogatory. Combine that with the Reddit posts where Mandy wrote that she finally realized she had been the only person who ever showed up for herself, and that she filled journal after journal with nice things about herself, even if she didn't believe them.
Because of what he did, I finally realized that I had been the only person who ever showed up for myself my whole entire life. I didn't deserve to treat myself the way I had been. I decided to rewrite my brain as best as I could. I literally filled up journal upon journal upon journal with nice things about myself, even if I didn't believe them. I stopped dressing for him. I chose to dress for myself. I experimented with my natural curls and wore less makeup. I really leaned into the spiritual experience of getting to know and appreciate myself. It was the best thing I ever did for myself. Don't get me wrong, I sometimes still feel insecure. And 4.5 years out from D-Day, which appears to be the day she's talking about when she found out about this alleged affair, I still occasionally get triggers that suck me in. But my self-esteem is now able to withstand those triggers. Instead of resorting to, I'm the worst, I hate myself, I now find
that she told her husband she now knew she deserved better than what he gave her in the past.
About it is that now my WH finds my self-confidence to be super attractive. I mean, I think he finds it a little scary too, because he knows that I now know I deserve better than what he gave me in the past and won't tolerate any cheating in the future, which is a win-win, I guess. In another post, she says that she believes the affair that she says Christopher had with a coworker was, quote, more physical than he ever admitted to. Back in 2024, she talked about how the couple was in marriage counseling. She says that,
and you begin to see the outline of a man who was losing control over every pillar of his constructed life.
Marriage counseling, she says that their therapist made it clear to Christopher that, quote, just know even if things are, quote, good, this is forever a part of your spouse's psyche. Even when things are good, I think of my husband's infidelity. Mandy reportedly.
His job, his marriage, his reputation. He'll never face prosecution. That is the third time that truth must be stated.
And unfortunately for the public and for family members, there's no way to really exact that justice from him. He killed himself, so there's not even a chance to ask him why or to try to get out of him why. We try to see him be remorseful or pay a penance. That's it. It's over. Why is the only question left.
Because it is the permanent structural fact of this case. Christopher Kitz wrote his own final sentence, and in doing so, he denied his victims the one thing the legal system is designed to provide: a public accounting, a formal declaration that this was wrong, that someone is responsible, that the names of Amanda and those 6 children will be spoken in a courtroom and remembered as more than autopsy statistics. The children were found in their bedrooms.
Police. So it just seems like this was, on one hand, snapping, but then at the same time, the amount of time that potentially took inside the home and then lighting fires in multiple locations, where it just seems like it was a plan, a horrific plan that was played out. In a lot of these cases, because Christopher Kitz will not be prosecuted.
That detail from law enforcement is the one that should keep you awake. They were not gathered in one room. They were not victims of a single explosive moment. Someone moved through that house from bedroom to bedroom and then lit fires in multiple locations, a sequence that required time, intention, and a level of detachment that the human mind struggles to categorize. After the fire, after the autopsies, after the news conferences, only one thing remains actionable for anyone watching this case. The Ottawa County Sheriff's Office has publicly stated that the investigation is ongoing and that they are still gathering evidence, including video footage, to establish a precise timeline. The final investigative report will eventually be filed and accessible under Michigan's public records law. Go find that report when it's released.
Yeah, and you just think of, Mandy had so much to give the world, these kids had so much to give the world, and Christopher Kitz took it away in just the most horrific way possible. Just a terrible case out of Michigan. Randy Kessler, family law attorney. Thanks for taking the time to talk about this with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Read the timeline they reconstruct. And then ask yourself the question that this leaves on the table. At what exact moment did Christopher Kitz become someone capable of extinguishing his entire family? And was there any signal in the days before the fire that the people around him missed? Because that is not just a question about one man. That is a question about what we are willing to see before the smoke becomes visible from the outside. If you want to follow that document trail with us, like this video, share it, subscribe to the VerdictOrigin, and turn on notifications. Evidence doesn't disappear. We just stop looking. We don't stop. We'll see you on the next one.